Tonight, we explore a story steeped in intrigue and wonder, the elusive secrets of the moving staircases. Have you ever wondered what drives these ancient marvels to shift and twist, leading students to places both familiar and unknown? In this tale, two young friends, Amelia and Leo, uncover a hidden mystery tied to the very heart of Hogwarts. Their journey will take them beyond the familiar, into hidden corridors and forgotten chambers, as they follow the whispers of the castle's secrets. Hogwarts Castle stood in serene majesty, its towers rising high under a blanket of stars. At the center of the castle, the grand staircase loomed, and its polished steps stretched upward in a labyrinth of twisting, shifting platforms. Normally a source of bustling energy, tonight the staircases were unnervingly still. Their usual rhythm paused, as though holding their breath. If you've ever wondered what secrets Hogwarts holds in the stillness of night, join us on this calming journey. Like, subscribe, and share if you enjoy unraveling the magical mysteries of this world. So, settle in, find a cozy spot, and let your imagination drift as we unravel the enchanting tale of the mystery of the moving staircases. Prepare for a gentle adventure filled with wonder, curiosity, and the soothing magic of the wizarding world. Amelia Clearwater was known among her friends for her insatiable curiosity. As a third-year Ravenclaw, her sharp mind and love for mysteries often led her into unusual adventures. With her dark curls tied back loosely and her favorite midnight blue robes wrapped snugly around her, she looked every bit the quintessential Hogwarts student. Tonight, however, even she felt a quiet unease that refused to fade. Sitting beside her in the common room was her best friend, Leo Croft, a Hufflepuff with a warm smile and a knack for keeping things light. Leo, with his chestnut hair always slightly askew and a soft laugh never far from his lips, was the perfect counterbalance to Amelia's more serious nature. "I think the staircases are acting up again," Amelia murmured, her quill tapping rhythmically against her parchment. Leo leaned back in his chair, raising an eyebrow. "Acting up? They're staircases, Amelia. They don't have moods." "They might," she countered, her voice thoughtful. "Don't you think it's strange how they've been moving differently lately? It's almost like they're trying to communicate." Leo smirked, clearly unconvinced. "If they're trying to tell me something, it's probably to stop taking so many snacks up to the dormitory." Amelia gave him a small smile, but remained focused, her mind already turning over the possibilities. She closed her book with a soft thud and stood, adjusting her robes. "Come on, let's take a look." Leo groaned dramatically, though his smile remained. You know, one day you're going to drag me into something that actually gets us expelled. And yet, here you are. Amelia replied with a playful grin. She grabbed her lantern, its warm light flickering as it cut through the dim room, and started toward the door. The halls were quiet as the two friends made their way toward the grand staircase. The soft sound of their footsteps echoed faintly, mixing with the distant whispers of enchanted portraits. "Do you feel it?" Amelia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Leo shrugged. "Feel what?" "The overwhelming desire to be in bed right now." Amelia gave him a sidelong glance. "I mean the castle. It feels alive tonight. More than usual." Leo paused for a moment, as if considering her words, before giving a half shrug. "If it's alive, let's hope it doesn't decide to eat us." Despite his teasing tone, Amelia knew he felt it too. There was a charge in the air, subtle but undeniable, like the first stirrings of a storm. As they reached the first landing of the staircase, they both stopped. The steps stretched above them in an intricate web, their gleaming surfaces seemingly waiting for something. For a moment, neither of them moved, their breaths catching in quiet anticipation. "I don't know what you're up to," Leo muttered, looking up at the towering stairs. "But if this turns into another one of your midnight adventures, I'm demanding chocolate frogs as payment." Amelia grinned. "Deal. Now, let's see where this takes us." Amelia placed a cautious foot on the first step of the grand staircase, her lantern's glow casting flickering shadows across the ancient stone. The staircase didn't move. It remained still, almost unnaturally so, as if waiting for her decision. Leo stood behind her, his arms crossed and his usual smirk replaced by a wary expression. "Maybe it's just tired," he joked, though his voice lacked its usual playfulness. Amelia ignored him, stepping fully onto the staircase. The air around her felt charged, tingling faintly against her skin. She turned to Leo, motioning for him to follow. Reluctantly, he joined her, his footsteps echoing in the quiet hall. As they climbed, the familiar creaks and groans of the moving staircases were conspicuously absent. The silence pressed down on them, broken only by the soft rustle of Amelia's robes and the faint flicker of her lantern's flame. The staircase stretched upward endlessly, its landings shrouded in shadow. "Do you feel that?" Amelia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Leo nodded, his brow furrowing. "It's like the air is heavier. I don't like it." They reached the first landing, and Amelia paused, scanning the area. The stone walls here seemed darker, the portraits unusually quiet. The figures within their frames appeared asleep or turned away, their faces hidden. Something's definitely off, Amelia murmured, stepping closer to one of the portraits. As she leaned in, the staircase beneath them shifted. It wasn't the usual smooth, fluid motion they were used to. It was abrupt, almost jarring, like the stairs were resisting their own magic. Amelia stumbled slightly, grabbing the banister for support. "All right, now I'm worried," Leo muttered, gripping the railing tightly. "Do staircases normally feel angry?" Amelia didn't answer. Her gaze was fixed on the steps ahead, which seemed to ripple faintly, like water disturbed by a stone. The lantern's light flickered, and for a brief moment, the shadows at the edges of the staircase appeared to move, shifting in ways the light couldn't explain. "Do you see that?" she asked, her voice sharp with curiosity. Leo followed her gaze, his eyes narrowing. "I see shadows, that's all." "No," Amelia said, stepping forward. "It's more than shadows. It's like..." She trailed off, unable to find the words. Instead, she continued climbing, her footsteps cautious yet determined. The staircase led them to a landing they didn't recognize. Unlike the bustling, well-lit landings they were used to, this one was dim and deserted. A single torch flickered on the wall, its light barely illuminating the worn stone floor. At the center of the landing stood a door they had never seen before. "That's not supposed to be here," Leo said, his voice uneasy. Amelia approached the door, her lantern held high. Its surface was intricately carved with swirling patterns, runes etched into the wood that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. There was no handle, only a small, circular indentation at the center. "What do you think it is?" Leo asked, standing a few steps behind her. "A door, obviously," Amelia replied, her tone distracted as she traced the runes with her fingertips. The wood felt warm, pulsing faintly under her touch. Leo rolled his eyes. "Thank you, Miss Obvious. I meant, why is it here? And why does it look like it's from some ancient wizard's tomb?" Amelia didn't answer. Her fingers hovered over the circular indentation. It was just large enough to fit her hand. She glanced back at Leo, who shook his head vigorously. "Don't," he said. "Whatever you're thinking, just don't." "I have to," Amelia replied, her voice quiet but firm. "It's like it's calling to me." Before Leo could protest further, she placed her hand into the indentation. The runes flared to life, glowing brightly as the door began to hum. The air around them vibrated with energy, and the staircase beneath their feet shifted again, this time smoothly, as though it approved of her action. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit corridor that seemed to stretch endlessly into the darkness. A faint, silvery mist swirled within, giving the impression of a dream just out of reach. "This is a bad idea," Leo said, but Amelia was already stepping forward, her lantern casting long shadows on the misty floor. The corridor was silent, save for the faint hum of magic in the air. The walls were lined with ancient tapestries, their colors faded but their patterns intricate and mesmerizing. Each step seemed to echo unnaturally, the sound lingering far longer than it should. As they ventured deeper, a soft melodic hum began to fill the air. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it carried a strange sense of familiarity, like a lullaby from a distant memory. "What is that?" Leo whispered, his voice tinged with awe and fear. "I don't know," Amelia replied, her eyes scanning the corridor. "But I think it's leading us somewhere." The hum grew louder as they continued, the mist swirling around their feet. The corridor seemed endless, yet Amelia felt no fatigue, only a growing sense of wonder and anticipation. Ahead, the mist began to part, revealing another door, identical to the first. This time, the runes glowed brighter, and the hum of magic was almost deafening. Amelia and Leo exchanged a glance, their curiosity and unease mirrored in each other's eyes. Without hesitation, Amelia reached for the door. Amelia pressed her hand against the second door, and the runes pulsed once, their light cascading across the misty corridor. The door opened with a soft creak, revealing a circular room unlike anything they had ever seen. It was dimly lit by floating orbs of golden light that hovered near the ceiling, casting a warm glow over the space. The air felt thick with ancient magic, almost tangible, as though it had been waiting for centuries to be noticed. The walls were lined with shelves filled with peculiar objects, crystal spheres that shimmered with inner light, quills that floated mid-air, and tiny hourglasses that seemed to run backward. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, its surface smooth and reflective, as if carved from a single piece of obsidian. Resting on top was a small, intricately carved compass. Its needle spun lazily in every direction, seemingly unbound by traditional magnetic forces. "Okay," Leo said, stepping cautiously into the room behind her. "I take back everything I said. This is definitely not normal." Amelia approached the pedestal, her lantern held high. The light danced across the surface of the compass, revealing faint etchings along its edges. They weren't runes this time, but symbols she couldn't immediately decipher, stars, moons, and other celestial markings that seemed to shift under her gaze. "It's beautiful," she murmured, reaching out tentatively. "Wait," Leo said sharply, grabbing her arm before she could touch it. "We don't know what that thing does. For all we know, it could turn us into house elves or something." Amelia gave him an exasperated look. "It's not cursed, Leo. It's guiding us. Can't you feel it?" "I feel like we're about to get in way over our heads," he muttered, though he didn't let go of her arm. The compass began to hum softly, its needle spinning faster. The symbols along its edges glowed faintly, and the orbs of light above seemed to dim in response, as though bowing to its energy. Amelia felt her breath catch as the compass's hum grew louder, resonating in her chest. "What is it doing?" Leo asked, his voice hushed. Before Amelia could answer, the needle stopped abruptly, pointing toward a section of the wall lined with shelves. The hum ceased, leaving the room eerily silent. The stillness was broken only by the faint crackle of Amelia's lantern. Amelia and Leo exchanged a glance before moving toward the wall. As they approached, the shelves seemed to shimmer, their edges blurring like the surface of water. Amelia reached out, her fingers brushing against the wood, and it dissolved beneath her touch, revealing a hidden passage. "I told you the castle was alive," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. Leo groaned but followed her into the passage. "Remind me why I let you talk me into these things." The passage was narrow, the walls smooth and cool to the touch. Tiny motes of light floated through the air, illuminating their way. The air grew cooler as they descended, the faint hum of magic returning, this time softer and more distant. "Where do you think this leads?" Leo asked, his voice echoing faintly. "Somewhere important," Amelia replied. "The compass wouldn't have pointed us here otherwise." As they moved deeper, the passage widened into a small chamber. At its center stood an ornate mirror, its frame gilded and encrusted with tiny gemstones. The surface of the mirror wasn't reflective. Instead, it shimmered like liquid silver, rippling softly as if alive. Amelia approached cautiously, her heart pounding. She could feel the mirror's magic, a gentle pull that invited her closer. "It's enchanted," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Leo stayed back, his arms crossed. "Obviously, the question is it friendly enchanted or let's trap you forever enchanted?" Amelia ignored him, her gaze fixed on the mirror. As she drew closer, the rippling surface began to stabilize, revealing an image. It was the grand staircase, but not as they had left it. The staircases moved swiftly, their paths intertwining like a dance, and the entire structure seemed to glow faintly, as though infused with new energy. "Is that now?" Leo asked, stepping closer despite himself. "I don't think so," Amelia replied, studying the image. "It feels older, like it's showing us something from the past." The image shifted, showing a group of wizards and witches standing on the staircase. They wore robes of deep blue and gold, their faces serious as they gestured toward the steps. One of them held a compass identical to the one they had just seen. "It's them," Amelia said, her voice filled with awe. "The ones who enchanted the staircases." The mirror rippled again, and the image changed. This time, it showed the grand staircase as it was now, still and quiet, the air around it heavy with unease. A faint shadow lingered at the base of the steps, its shape indistinct but menacing. Leo shivered. "What is that?" Amelia didn't answer. She couldn't look away from the shadow, a sense of dread creeping over her. Whatever it was, she knew it was the reason the staircases were behaving so strangely. The mirror rippled one final time, and the image faded, leaving only the liquid silver surface behind. The silence was heavy as Amelia turned to Leo. "We have to fix this." The chamber's silence was broken only by the faint hum of magic still lingering in the air. Amelia and Leo stood frozen, the weight of the mirror's vision settling heavily on their shoulders. The shadow they had seen in the reflection loomed in their minds, its indistinct form carrying a menace that was impossible to ignore. Amelia finally turned to Leo, determination flickering in her eyes. "We can't leave it like this," she said. "The staircases, this whole castle, they're connected to something bigger. And whatever that shadow is, it's the reason everything feels wrong." Leo let out a long sigh, his shoulders slumping. "You realize how insane this is, right? We're two students. What exactly are we supposed to do about a magical shadow that can mess with the staircases?" "We figure it out," Amelia replied, her voice steady. "Hogwarts always leaves clues if you know where to look." Leo rubbed his temples, clearly torn between his better judgment and the pull of the mystery. "All right," he muttered. "But if this gets us caught, I'm blaming you." Amelia offered him a small smile before turning back to the room. Her eyes scanned the shelves, the intricate objects seemingly ordinary now compared to the mirror's revelations. She moved toward the pedestal where the compass still rested, its needle now completely still. "We start with this," she said, picking up the compass. It was heavier than she expected, its surface cool against her skin. The celestial markings along its edges glimmered faintly, as though alive with residual magic. The wizards in the mirror were using it. It must be important. Leo peered over her shoulder, his curiosity slowly overcoming his hesitation. "All right, so it's a magical compass. What does it point to? Treasure? Ancient secrets? A really good snack in the kitchens?" Amelia rolled her eyes. "It pointed us to this room, didn't it? Maybe it can help us figure out what's wrong with the staircases." She held the compass up, her thumb brushing over the carved markings. As if in response, the needle twitched, then spun slowly to the left. Amelia followed its direction, leading them to a smaller, less ornate door hidden in the shadows of the chamber. Leo hesitated. Another mysterious door. Great. because the first two were so inviting. Amelia ignored his sarcasm and pushed the door open. The passage beyond was narrow and winding, the air cooler than before. The faint glow of Amelia's lantern illuminated the rough stone walls, which seemed to close in around them as they descended further into the depths of the castle. "Do you think this is part of the original Hogwarts?" Leo asked, his voice hushed. "It feels older," Amelia replied, her gaze fixed ahead, like it was hidden even before the castle was built. The passage eventually opened into another room, smaller than the last, but just as intriguing. The walls were lined with faded down tapestries depicting scenes of ancient magic. Wizards casting spells over glowing runes, staircases weaving through vast halls, and shadows creeping at the edges of the light. At the center of the room stood a stone pedestal similar to the one they had seen before. This time, a single object rested on its surface, a book, its cover worn and its edges frayed with age. Amelia approached cautiously, the compass in her hand vibrating slightly as she drew closer. Leo frowned. "A book? That's what the compass wanted us to find?" "Books are powerful," Amelia said, her voice filled with reverence. "Especially here." She reached out, her fingers brushing the cover. The book felt warm, almost alive, as if it had been waiting for her. She opened it carefully, revealing pages filled with handwritten notes and sketches. The handwriting was elegant but hurried, the ink faint but legible. "It's a journal," she murmured, scanning the pages. "It belonged to one of the wizards who enchanted the staircases." Leo leaned over her shoulder, his eyes widening as he read. "What does it say?" "It talks about the staircases," Amelia replied, flipping through the pages. "They weren't just enchanted to move. They were designed to protect something hidden deep within the castle. And let me guess," Leo said, his tone dry. "The shadow we saw in the mirror is whatever they were protecting it from." Amelia nodded, her heart racing. "If the shadow's here, it means the enchantments are weakening. We have to find out why." The final pages of the journal were different. The handwriting was shakier, the words rushed. One line stood out, written in bold letters. "Trust the compass, but beware the shadow. It feeds on fear." Amelia closed the book, her resolve hardening. "We need to go back to the staircases," she said. "That's where it all started." Leo groaned. "Of course we do, because that's exactly where the creepy shadow thing will be." Amelia glanced at him, a small smile playing on her lips. "Scared? Terrified," he admitted. "But I'm coming with you anyway." With the journal tucked under her arm and the compass in hand, Amelia led the way back through the winding passages. The castle seemed to hold its breath as they walked, the air thick with anticipation. whatever waited for them at the grand staircase. They knew it would be the key to unraveling the mystery. Amelia and Leo emerged from the hidden passage into the familiar yet eerily silent corridors of Hogwarts. The grand staircase loomed ahead, its many steps and landings shrouded in a faint mist that hadn't been there before. The lantern in Amelia's hand flickered uncertainly, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch unnaturally. The compass in Amelia's hand began to hum softly again, its needle spinning with renewed energy. She held it up, watching as it pointed directly toward the base of the staircase. "We're close," she said, her voice steady despite the growing unease in her chest. Leo swallowed hard, his eyes darting around the dimly lit hall. "I don't like this. It's too quiet. Even the portraits are hiding." Amelia nodded, noting the empty frames that lined the walls. The usual chatter of the painted inhabitants was absent, leaving only the faint creak of the staircase and the soft hum of the compass. They approached the staircase cautiously, the mist swirling around their feet as if alive. Amelia stopped at the bottom step, her eyes scanning the area for any sign of the shadow they had seen in the mirror. "It's here," she whispered. "I can feel it." Leo stepped closer, his wand drawn. "Do you think it knows we're here?" Amelia didn't answer. Instead, she opened the journal they had found, flipping to the final pages. The words seemed to glow faintly in the lantern's light, as though the magic within the book was awakening in response to the danger around them. "Trust the compass," she read aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. "But beware the shadow. It feeds on fear." Leo groaned softly. "Great. That's helpful. Just don't be afraid of the terrifying magical shadow. Easy." Amelia ignored his sarcasm, her focus on the staircase. She placed the journal carefully on the first step, the compass still in her other hand. The needle quivered, then pointed upward, leading them toward the higher landings. "We have to go up," she said, taking a deep breath. Leo hesitated. "Are you sure? Shouldn't we, I don't know, call a professor or something?" "There is no time," Amelia replied firmly. "If the shadow is feeding on the castle's magic, it could get stronger. We have to stop it before it's too late." Reluctantly, Leo followed as she began to climb. The stairs creaked softly under their feet, the mist growing thicker with each step. The higher they went, the heavier the air felt, pressing down on them like an invisible weight. At the third landing, the mist parted, revealing the shadow they had seen in the mirror. It was larger now, its form shifting and writhing like smoke caught in a windless room. Tendrils of darkness extended outward, curling around the banisters and stretching toward the walls. Amelia froze, her heart pounding in her chest. The shadow turned toward them, though it had no eyes or discernible features. A low rumbling sound filled the air, resonating deep in their bones. Leo's grip on his wand tightened. "What do we do?" he whispered. Amelia held up the compass, its needle spinning wildly. The journal said to trust the compass. "It's leading us here for a reason." She stepped forward, her movements slow and deliberate. The shadow seemed to react to her presence, its tendrils pulling back slightly as though it were studying her. Amelia took another step, holding the compass out in front of her. "We're not afraid of you," she said, her voice steady despite the fear curling in her stomach. The shadow recoiled, the rumbling sound growing louder. Amelia glanced at the journal, the glowing words reminding her of the warning. "It feeds on fear. It's trying to scare us," she said, turning to Leo. "But it's only as strong as we let it be. We can't give it what it wants." Leo hesitated, his fear evident in his wide eyes and clenched jaw, but he nodded, stepping closer to Amelia. "All right, no fear. Got it." The shadow's form began to shift, its tendrils reaching out again. Amelia focused on the compass, which was now glowing faintly. She remembered the wizards in the mirror, their determination and purpose. They had enchanted the staircases to protect the castle, and now it was up to her and Leo to carry on their legacy. "Hold the compass," she said, handing it to Leo. "I need both hands for this." Leo took the compass reluctantly, his eyes fixed on the shadow. Amelia stepped forward, her hands raised as if to shield herself. She closed her eyes, focusing on the warmth of the magic surrounding her. "Hogwarts," she whispered, her voice filled with reverence. "Help us, guide us." The staircase beneath her feet began to tremble, the mist swirling faster. The shadow let out a low, guttural sound, its form shrinking slightly. Amelia opened her eyes, the light from the lantern flaring brighter. The shadow recoiled again, its tendrils retreating as the staircase seemed to come alive. The banisters glowed faintly, the stone steps vibrating with energy. Amelia felt the magic of the castle around her, a protective presence that bolstered her courage. "We can do this," she said, her voice firm. "Together." Leo stepped beside her, the compass in his hand glowing brighter than ever. The shadow let out one final ear-piercing wail before dissolving into the mist. The air grew still, the heavy pressure lifting as the castle returned to its familiar, comforting presence. Amelia and Leo stood in silence, the compass now still in Leo's hand. The grand staircase creaked softly, its usual motion restored. "We did it," Amelia said, a small smile breaking through her exhaustion. Leo let out a shaky laugh. "I can't believe that actually worked." The grand staircase seemed to sigh in relief, its steps creaking softly as it resumed its usual rhythmic movement. The once threatening mist was gone, replaced by the warm, familiar glow of the castle's torches. The weight that had hung over the air dissipated, leaving behind a serene stillness that felt like a gentle embrace. Amelia and Leo stood side by side, the compass now quiet in Leo's hand. The journal rested securely in Amelia's grasp, its pages no longer glowing, but carrying the answers they had sought. Both of them were quiet, their hearts still racing from the encounter with the shadow. "Well," Leo finally said, breaking the silence, "that's one for the Hogwarts history books." Amelia managed a tired laugh. "If we ever tell anyone, which we probably won't." Leo glanced around at the empty corridors. "The portraits will tell everyone anyway. Probably exaggerated too." The mention of the portraits made Amelia smile. She glanced at the nearest frame, now reoccupied by a snoring wizard with a long silver beard. The castle was alive again, its magic humming softly, as if thanking them for their efforts. "We should put the compass back," Amelia said, gesturing toward the journal. "It belongs in the chamber with the book. Whoever comes after us might need it." Leo raised an eyebrow. "And the shadow? Do you think it's really gone?" Amelia hesitated, her fingers brushing the worn edges of the journal. "It's been weakened, for sure, but if it ever returns..." She held up the journal. "This will guide whoever faces it next." Together, they descended the stairs, the lantern casting a warm glow on the polished stone steps. The castle's usual sounds returned, the distant chatter of a ghost, the faint rustle of wind through the high windows, and the comforting creak of the moving staircases. It felt like home again, as if the castle itself was breathing easier. They retraced their steps to the hidden passage, the door opening smoothly at their touch. The chamber beyond was just as they had left it, its shelves filled with peculiar objects that now seemed less mysterious and more reassuring. The pedestal awaited them in the center, the perfect resting place for the compass. Amelia stepped forward, setting the journal and compass down gently. The runes on the pedestal glimmered faintly, acknowledging the return of the items. The room seemed to hum softly, a quiet thank you from the castle. Leo let out a long breath, leaning against the doorway. "So, what now? Do we just go back to studying for transfiguration and pretend this never happened?" Amelia smiled. "Something like that. But maybe we'll pay a little more attention to the castle's secrets from now on." Leo chuckled. "You're saying that like you weren't already doing that." As they left the chamber, the door sealed itself behind them, the runes fading into the smooth stone. The passage felt lighter now, its oppressive weight replaced with the gentle warmth of restored magic. Back in the Gryffindor common room, the fire crackled softly in the hearth, its golden light dancing across the walls. The room was quiet, most students having already gone to bed. Amelia and Leo sank into the plush armchairs near the fire, their exhaustion finally catching up with them. Leo stretched, his arms dropping heavily onto the armrests. I'm not sure if I'm relieved or completely drained. A bit of both, Amelia admitted, pulling a blanket over her lap. But we did something good tonight. The castle feels right again. Leo nodded, his eyes half closed. Just promise me one thing. What's that? No more mysterious adventures for at least a week. Let me recover first. Amelia laughed softly. Deal. The fire crackled, the warmth seeping into their tired limbs. The castle was calm once more, its magic restored, and its secrets safe. As the room grew quieter, the weight of sleep began to pull at their eyelids. For a moment, Amelia's thoughts drifted to the wizards in the mirror and the legacy they had left behind. She felt a sense of connection to them, as if their courage and determination had passed on to her and Leo. Hogwarts was more than just a school. It was a living, breathing entity that called on its inhabitants to protect it when needed. As her eyes closed, a soft smile played on her lips. The castle had trusted them, and they had answered that call. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Amelia felt certain they would face them together, just as they had tonight. The fire dimmed, its embers glowing softly as the castle settled into its peaceful rhythm. The moving staircases creaked gently in the distance, their paths steady and true once more. And within the cozy warmth of the common room, Amelia and Leo drifted into a well-earned rest, their hearts light and their spirits at peace. The warmth of the Gryffindor common room wrapped around Amelia and Leo like a protective cocoon. The crackling fire in the hearth filled the room with its soft, golden light, casting gentle shadows on the walls. The magical energy that had once felt chaotic and unbalanced was now calm, harmonious, and reassuringly familiar. Amelia sat in her favorite armchair, the journal resting on the table beside her. She traced its worn edges with her fingertips, reflecting on the journey they had just completed. The grand staircase was no longer shrouded in unease, and the castle felt alive and welcoming again. Hogwarts had entrusted its secrets to them, and they had risen to the challenge. Leo reclined in the chair opposite her, his head tilted back and eyes half closed. I don't think I've ever been this tired, he muttered, a small smile on his lips. But it's a good kind of tired, you know. Amelia nodded, her gaze fixed on the glowing embers in the fireplace. We did something important tonight. The castle feels at peace. Yeah, Leo agreed softly. It's like it's thanking us. The firelight flickered, bathing the room in a comforting glow. The portraits along the walls had returned, their occupants quietly observing or dozing in their frames. Even the usually rowdy fat lady seemed content, her frame tilted slightly as if leaning into the warmth of the room. "Do you think anyone will ever know what we did?" Leo asked after a moment. Amelia smiled, her voice quiet but certain. "Maybe not, but that's okay. Hogwarts knows, and that's what matters." Leo let out a deep breath, the tension of the evening melting away. "I guess we're part of the castle's history now." "You've always been," Amelia replied with a soft laugh. "You're just noticing it now." The silence that followed wasn't heavy or uncomfortable. It was filled with the gentle hum of magic, the reassuring creak of the castle settling, and the rhythmic sound of the moving staircases in the distance. All was as it should be. As the fire dwindled to embers, Amelia and Leo drifted into a peaceful sleep, their hearts light and their spirits at ease. Hogwarts, ever watchful, cradled them in its ancient embrace, promising that they were safe, always protected within its magical walls. And so, the night passed, calm and serene, the castle once again whole.